So help you God.
So help me 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 God.
So help you God. So help me God.
So help me God.
Did America's first president really chow down on hoe cakes drowned in maple syrup while juggling a nation, a whiskey distillery, and a herd of fashion-forward sheep? Stick around, because the George Washington you think you know, the stiff marble statue on your dollar bills, is about to be replaced by a flesh and blood foodie, a family man, serial entrepreneur, and low-key hype beast who practically invented the presidential flex, wooden tooth grin not included. 1. Breakfast of Revolutionary Champions, Washington's favorite bites. If Instagram foodstagrammers had existed in 1790, George would have burned up every colonial feed. His morning go-to? Hoe cakes, fluffy cornmeal pancakes slathered in rich maple syrup, paired with 3 cups of super strong coffee, sweetened with molasses, because, hey, sugar tariffs were real. Martha's enslaved chef Hercules, and later the celebrated James Hemings, yes, Sally's brother, whipped up these carb-heavy treats that powered Washington through cabinet squabbles, and the occasional impromptu fencing session in the hallway. Lunch usually starred Virginia ham and peanut soup. The man loved legumes, while dinner showcased fresh fish from the Potomac, and, on grand occasions, an entire pineapple. The 18th century symbol of, I'm rich, thanks for noticing. Side note, Washington was notorious for shelling out top dollar to import ice so he could enjoy chilled desserts in midsummer. Founding father or first foodie influencer? You decide. 2. Meet the Washington clan. Family, love, and the myth of the wooden teeth. George married the incomparable Martha Dandridge Custis, a widow with 2 small children, Jackie and Patsy, whom George raised as his own. He never had biological kids. Scholars blame smallpox or childhood illnesses. Still, he adopted 8 of his nieces and nephews, proving he ran Mount Vernon more like a bustling Airbnb than a secluded plantation. Family game night? Believe it or not, Washington adored card games, especially whist, despite publicly scolding soldiers for gambling. When little grandchildren visited, he'd compete in corn-husking races and teach riding lessons, offering a gold coin to anyone who stayed on the rowdiest horse. And about those famous wooden teeth, total myth. His dentures were ivory, copper, and hippopotamus bone. Talk about exotic. They hurt like crazy, so he rarely smiled wide, which is why his portraits scream serious vibes only. 3. Money, mansions, and Mount Vernon luxury. Net worth and lifestyle flex. On paper, Washington's fortune hovered around $525 million in 2025 dollars, making him the 3rd wealthiest U.S. president after Donald Trump and John F. Kennedy. He owned 8,000 plus acres, 300 plus enslaved people, half inherited via marriage, 5 farms, a grist mill, a world-class whiskey distillery that produced nearly 11,000 gallons annually, and thoroughbred stables that would make modern Kentucky blush. His mansion at Mount Vernon wasn't the gaudiest on earth, but attention to branding was next level. Speaking of Mount Vernon was the Washington family home from 1754 to 1799. Perched on a 60-foot bluff overlooking the Potomac River, Mount Vernon was far more than a country house. It was George Washington's lifelong passion project and the stage set for his pre- and post-presidential life. During his 2 presidential terms, George lived in official residences in New York City and then Philadelphia, but Mount Vernon remained home. Cousin Lund Washington oversaw constant repairs, repainting the piazza, refreshing rooms, and shipping crates of presidential china back to Virginia so the mansion never lost its shine. The cupola's weather vane? A whimsical dove of peace. Dining rooms painted verdigris green, the era's trendiest and costliest pigment, screamed, "I'm loaded," but with taste, darling. He even installed an early ventilation system, think colonial HVAC, so dinner guests wouldn't sweat through their silk waistcoats. He signed paperwork in the study each dawn, then enjoyed breakfast hoe cakes in the verdigris dining room, always facing the river to spot guest arrivals. The house was both office and hotel. Records show more than 650 overnight visitors in one peak year of the 1780s. Today, thanks to the Mount Vernon Ladies Association since 1858, The estate appears much as it did when Washington last walked its checkerboard floors, right down to the verdigris walls and the piazza rocking chairs still staring at that unbeatable Potomac panorama. George's biggest financial flex? Refusing a presidential salary, only to later accept it because Congress insisted. Fine, twist my powdered arm. 4. Habits, hobbies, and daily quirks. At 4 a.m., yes, before roosters, Washington journaled weather patterns, crop rotations, and personal expenses down to the penny. Fitness? He rode 16 miles before breakfast, cracked walnuts with bare hands, and once outthrew a champion stone skipper by 8 feet. His social life was equally extra. He could dance an entire evening of minuets without perspiring, a superpower in pre-deodorant America. Pets? Cue the cuteness. Sweet Lips, Tipsy, and Drunkard, all foxhounds he bred himself. He named a parrot Polly because even legends have boring bird names. Sunday evenings he read theater plays aloud to Martha. Shakespeare was bae, although he considered acting a time-wasting vice. Hypocrisy? Maybe. Charming? Absolutely. 5. Accomplishments that launched a republic. Commander-in-Chief wizardry. He dragged a ragtag Continental Army across frozen rivers, turned defeats into master classes, and earned Cornwallis's surrender at Yorktown. Presidential prototype. He invented the cabinet, the two-term tradition, and the phrase, Mr. President. He rejected his elective majesty. Oh boy, imagine that on business cards. Definitely cannot picture it. Economic stabilizer. He endorsed Alexander Hamilton's debt plan, even though he barely understood Hamilton's 40-page footnotes, linking 13 states under one robust credit score. Foreign policy protector. He proclaimed neutrality in the Anglo-French slap fight of the 1790s, keeping America's nose unbloodied and its wallet open for business. Globally, he proved that Republican power could transfer peacefully, inspiring revolutions from France to Haiti, though the latter had to squint hard. Washington's stance on slavery remained, at best, complicated. He freed his enslaved people in his will, progressive for 1799, overdue by modern standards. 6. Retirement 2.0, the post-presidency years. Picture it, March 4, 1797. George hands off the presidency to John Adams and heads back to Mount Vernon like a college kid escaping finals week. His plan? To chill forever. The reality, however, was that George 1. had a whiskey barren life. Within months, he scaled his distillery to become the nation's biggest producer. George Washington, founding father and founding father of Fireball. 2. was a tree planting addict. He cataloged 500 plus fruit and ornamental trees, testing soil pH by taste. Seriously, can you believe it? 3. could possibly be classified as a letter factory. He answered so much mail that Martha joked his quill needed hazard pay. Topics ranged from, should I name my baby after you? And of course, the answer was sure. To, will you endorse my goat milk soap? The answer was politely, no. And 4. was the quasi-war consultant. When France looked itchy for invasion, Adams begged George to lead an army. Washington agreed on one condition. He'd delegate day-to-day grunt work to Alexander Hamilton. George basically invented the modern executive advisor gig. Full title, fewer meetings. 7. Final days and dramatic exit. On December 12, 1799, Washington patrolled his plantation during a sleet storm. Soaked to the skin, he hosted dinner without changing clothes. Fashion versus flu. Poor choice. 2 days later, a raging throat infection, probably epiglottitis, robbed him of breath. Doctors bled him of 5 pints, nearly 40% of his blood, because 18th century medicine thought less blood, fewer germs. Spoiler, that didn't work. He died at 10:22 p.m. in his bedchamber, December 14, 1799, muttering, "'Tis well." Martha closed that room forever and moved to a smaller chamber upstairs. She remained until her own death in 1802. The nation wept. Church bells tolled for days. Napoleon ordered 10 days of mourning in France. Britain's navy lowered flags. awkward for formal rivals. Congress built a marble sarcophagus, but Martha kept him at Mount Vernon, where tourists still leave pennies, prayers, and occasionally miniature bottles of whiskey in tribute. 8. National shockwaves and global ripples. Washington's death cemented an early American ethos. Presidents were citizen leaders, not kings for life. European newspapers, often mocking the Yankee experiment, suddenly treated America like a grown-up nation. His farewell address, warning against permanent alliances, shaped U.S. foreign policy for over a century. Domestically, his example of voluntary retirement echoed through Grant, Eisenhower, and even Biden and Trump, who referenced Washington's model, if not always his calm demeanor. His will's Emancipation Clause influenced later debates on gradual abolition, giving ammunition to anti-slavery advocates who could point at the revered general and whisper, even he saw the light. 9. How history and pop culture will remember him. History will remember him as the reluctant superhero who never sought power, yet wielded it flawlessly. He was fashionably stoic. He wore immaculate military uniforms, tailored suits, but only 4 teeth, and still crushed portraits. In his time, Mr. Washington was indeed the OG influencer. From designer buckles to pineapple centerpieces, President George curated a personal brand centuries before blue check marks existed. To this day, he will forever be the benchmark. Every president gets compared to 1GW. Some measure up in courage, others in hair volume, but nobody matches the combo platter. He'll also be remembered, as every elementary school play joyously reminds us, for not lying about a cherry tree, another myth, for winning a war story so wild that Hollywood keeps rebooting it, and for stepping away from the throne he could have claimed. So, next time you drizzle maple syrup over pancakes, picture George Washington at 5 a.m., fork poised, already plotting a whiskey side hustle while his foxhound drunkard naps by the fire. The man didn't just found a country. He perfected the work hard, brunch harder lifestyle 2 centuries before it trended on TikTok. And that, dear viewers, is why America's first commander-in-chief, chief, still tastes sweeter than any myth you learned in school.